Imagine a place where the voices of ancestors still echo through ancient forests, where every ripple on the lake tells a story and the very ground beneath your feet holds centuries of wisdom. What if unlocking the secrets of a destination meant not just seeing new places, but deeply connecting with the heart and soul of its original stewards? In this episode, we're diving deep into Treaty 6 territory and the vision of kâniyâsihk culture camps. We'll learn about the importance of immersive, land-based teachings from beaver tracking to traditional fishing. And we'll try our hand at the ancient art of hide tanning. #winter is coming. How would you survive?
You're listening to the Rudderless Travel Podcast, a podcast about purposeful travel, sharing inspirational stories, and unlocking a destination's secrets.
Hey, my name is Christopher Rudder, an award-winning travel content creator and expert with Rudderless Media. So here I am, back in Saskatchewan, a Canadian province that's hard to say and spell, but very easy to draw. Hey, I don't make these things up. I heard that from a local Saskatchewanian, but I digress. I was back in Saskatoon at TMAC, the Travel Media Association of Canada, again attending the annual travel conference. I was fortunate enough to be part of a pre-conference media tour put together by the amazing people over at Tourism Saskatchewan. So, 7 of us piled into 2 SUVs, drove nearly 4 hours north of Saskatoon, deep into the heart of the Boreal forest. Let's just say that it's a place where the paved road ends just as the last bar of your cell phone signal vanishes. But that said, the trade-off is that you're surrounded by lakes, trees, wildlife, and fresh air. A place steeped in Indigenous history and culture. Look, anytime I get to hang out with my Indigenous friends and deep dive into their traditions, culture, and way of life is an absolute treat and a blessing. A great place to start is by attending powwows. It's one of my absolute favorite things to do, and I encourage everyone to go. Every year here in Toronto, I attend 2 powwows, the one over at Fort York and the one over at Dufferin Grove Park. You can ask questions, buy some products, some arts and crafts, eat food, and be genuinely happy. But if you really want to dive in, nothing beats the hands-on approach that you'll experience at kâniyâsihk culture camps. I'm not gonna lie, watching the last bar on my phone disappear, being replaced with the satellite icon, got me a little nervous. But it made Gordana a lot nervous. In the 2 days we were there, we learned about beaver tracking, setting fishing nets on Ministikwan Lake, filleting the fish we caught, and the ancient art of hide tanning. Lessons passed down from elders and knowledge keepers. Aside from taking photos and videos, I never really missed the internet. In fact, I completely forgot that it wasn't always available. Imagine that. Kâniyâsihk Culture Camps is located on the traditional territory covered by Treaty 6, and simply put, its role is to preserve the teachings of the traditional Cree way of life. Needless to say, when we arrived, children were playing. Yes, I know that sounds weird to say, but given the fact that babies are born being able to use an iPad, it's refreshing to see. They were playing classic games like my gym time favorite, Mr. Wolf, or simply swimming in the lake. To be fair, the kids do have cell phones and there was a Wi-Fi signal, albeit not super strong. But don't let these kids fool you. These kids know how to untangle fishing nets, fish, hunt, prepare food, preserve food, tan hides, pick berries, and so much more. But it wasn't always like that.
Yeah, it was actually that moment there where I got up extra early, and then the night before, of course, I went to go try to harvest some fish for a lesson in the classroom in the big school here. And then getting up early in the morning before, way before 8 o'clock. I think it was up maybe about 6, because I was pretty anxious to see if we were, one, going to get fish, and then two, what was going to be, in that harvest that we did, or I did that morning. And then, lucky it was, I did everything right, I think. And then I'm taking this tub of fish to the classroom in the big school. And then it failed on me, so I was kind of like, geez, what if there was no, I guess the fish in Cold Lake, which is our town, or fish and chips, those type of meals. And then we have like fresh fish that are right in front of the students in the classroom. And then this is what we're doing today. And then they didn't want to touch it because there was already like that disconnect within that generation, So the whole idea behind it was sort of like the get away from the idea of, or they don't know this, but like maybe they do, but organic or wild, anything, if you go to BC, it's wild caught salmon, organic this, grain fed this. It's very high. It's very sought after. It's a lot healthier, and it's expensive. But here you have these fish that are just like as wild can be, and then there was a disconnect because it didn't come packaged. There were actual full on, like, I think I might have had maybe 5 species of fish, there for them. So it was kind of like my first experience of this, and it was quite interesting.
By the way, I'm speaking with Dr. Kevin Lewis, one of the founders at Kâniyâsihk culture camps.
There was also, I had this one student that was in grade 10, and then, and then I had moved on, and then he was, I think, might have been in grade 11 at the time, but he actually passed away due to exposure, and it was winter time, right? The young man didn't get to have a full life. And then my dad and I went out to where he was found, right? And then he said, like, he wasn't questioning anything, but he was just talking out loud, which is kind of like the way like he teaches, and then he was like, what are we teaching? What are we teaching to our youth? What are we teaching to the kids, in these schools? Like, this shouldn't happen, So it was like, to me, it was like, yeah, you know what? We do have to do some changes in our system because it shouldn't happen, right? Because this young man could have had kids, he could have been married, could have had a career right now, but it was cut short because nobody had taught him how to create a sustaining fire. And then in Canada, we have winters, right? So we take fires very serious, and then because you can cook by them, you can visit by them, and then you just it warms you. If you can have a nice responsible fire, it does bring community together.
Absolutely. Another thing that you mentioned while we were together that stuck with me was that you wanted to gather as much information as possible from the elders and knowledge keepers before they passed on, taking all that knowledge with them.
Yeah, it's a legacy, right? It's like earlier on, like when we have technology nowadays, right, which is something that we've never shied away from. But like today, earlier on, we're listening. I was listening to my uncle, who's the chief of Onion Lake, and he was talking about sort of like this term called two-eyed seeing. That you hear elders talk like that, and then he was speaking like that as well. And then uh, he had mentioned that. One side, I have education from the university, the Western, academia and whatnot, but I'm also a Sundance Lodge keeper. I do the Bear Lodge, and then he was saying we can combine these today, and it's a lot more beautiful, a little more holistic in a way. So that's and then he was sitting with elders, and then he was addressing the elders, but then there was also youth that were sitting there amongst, that group right now. So they're gathering right now, and that's exactly what they're doing. They're collecting stories from the elders, because that wisdom and that knowledge is maybe more important today, because of climate change. Because of industry, we're starting to find fewer and fewer places, just like what we have here, what we've created, is where human beings can come together, enjoy a meal together, share stories. How's the East Coast? How's the West Coast? And then develop those relationships like that.
The word kâniyâsihk, what does it mean? What's its origin?
The first time I heard this was from my grandmother, which is like she's still around, and she pops in and out of the camp and just visits and becomes everybody's grandmother or great grandmother. But when she came, we were focused solely on the young boys that were going to be, hopefully, growing up to responsible men and taking part in the ceremony. So we were teaching them how to hunt. We were teaching them how to harvest sustainably from the Boreal forest, which is where we are. And then didn't take us too long because the little girls tapped us on the shoulder and they're like, "Hey, we're kind of wanting to learn what you're teaching the boys because the boys are talking about this and we're really proud of them. But what about us, Then I had to go, of course, Gugum is grandmother in Cree. So I go ask Gugum, I'm like, Gugum, squeeze my tanskiruta, right? He was talking to her in Cree, asking her, what should we do? And then we were at the garden at the time. She turned around, kind of looked westward where we were. And then she looked and she pointed and she went, kâniyâsihk, she says, and then she was going into kind of like the curriculum of what was done there during the seasons. She just laid it right out, right? And then I was like, well, okay, say that again. What is that word? Kâniyâsihk. And I'm like, what does that mean? And then it's like, it's that little point right there. That's what the traditional name of that little place is. And what we used to call it was New Beach. That's what we called it, like my generation. But the original name was kâniyâsihk, which is the place a little point in the lake. And then so when we started going into that generation, we hopped and brought their stories and the activities that they did seasonally. And then that's what we continuously try to promote today.
Only when the last tree has been cut down, the last fish been caught, and the last stream poisoned, will we realize we cannot eat money. Alana Sobomsawin.
When we arrived, we gathered around a cooking tent. Darla and Carmen welcomed us and took us on a tour around the camp property. Next to a round fire pit was this massive teepee. Hanging between trees were hides strung up, and off in the distance, this beautiful lake. We walked past the newly built bunk cabins where we'd be spending the night, as well as the 2 outhouses. They shared all their future projects they have coming down the pipe to expand the camp's offerings. As we headed back towards the teepee, we ran into Zachary Boyden, holding a bear skull and beaver's balls.
So this was a cinnamon bear or a red faded bear. So that's like a golden black bear. It's a black bear. It just has a gene that makes it different color. The name for that is Osao Musquam.
I should note that Zach has the most incredible set of knives I've ever seen. I was thinking of convincing him to, gift me one, but then I remembered I came to Saskatchewan with only a carry-on, and unfortunately, the airline security, they might just have a little bit of a problem with that. But anyway, holding up the beaver balls, he invited us to touch and smell them. As soon as we arrived there, you were immediately jumping in and started talking about the land and talking about the animals and started talking about beaver's balls, which was a great way to catch our attention. And then you had us sniffing them and stuff like that. And surprisingly, for those who don't know, they smell like jam, actually.
Yes. So beaver castor. So this is going to be gold for trappers. And then for ceremony and elders, this is a very important thing too. But if you're a trapper, that you're not going to let these go to waste. And if you're indigenous harvester, you're not going to let these go to waste either with beavers. Every beaver has them, males and females. So As you know from when you came, one of the first things that I was showing you was some beaver castor. Beaver balls is just for fun. It's their scent glands, but that's also their calling card. Every single beaver, that's just their individual scents. And it's used twofold. One, for trapping, it's going to be used as a lure, and it's called gold for a reason. Yes, when it comes out of the animal fresh, and the bag, when you rip open the bag, it's got a weird kind of consistency to it. It's like a viscous, powdery kind of goldish color, and it's gold, and it's quite pungent, and it doesn't smell the same way as when we let them hang and cure and dry. When we let them hang and cure and dry, it's used as twofolds. One, it's used for trappers to make more lures when you're doing above ice trapping, or in that transition period of the freeze up. If you start putting that castor around, the lure is not a beaver going, "Oh, that's beautiful scent, it's coming over." It's almost like a territory or a family unit. Beavers are moving as a family unit and establishing more territory that may not be part of their family unit. And they're going, "Who is here in our turf?" And they're going to go investigate. So that's the actual lure in itself on how I was taught on how to use it. When you're baiting your
Interesting.
sets above ice, or you're baiting your sets during that freeze up period where beavers are still moving on the terrestrial ground, it's more of an investigation on, hey, I don't recognize this beaver. Who's here? Who's who in the zoo? And then in which place you're catching them in your trap sets. Now, on
Interesting.
ceremony standpoint, these beaver casters, when they're going to be dried out and cured, it gets to an almost amber color. And I believe I showed you two types of casters. One that was fairly fresh, which was still kind of membraney and it hadn't dehydrated yet. And two, one that was completely uh, dehydrated and crystallized. That inside gets crystallized, and that will be used depending on the ceremony and the ceremonial lodge holder on their preference. The elders that I supplied these casters to will be using them for certain types of medicines, whether in a sweat lodge or during their secret different smudge blends or smoke blends. So that's twofolds. One, as the trappers lure and bait for getting more beavers, or two, the ceremonial aspect. But my role as a harvester and provider is to bring them the raw ingredients to what they're used. And it's mainly being asked, hey, when you're going out, would you be able to bring me this? Yes, no problem. I'll see what I can do. And minor exchange will take place. Sometimes pack of smokes. The elders around here know I don't smoke, so it's usually I'm given snuff instead. So the inside right here, if you can touch it, if you want, don't squeeze it too hard like you're popping a zit or something. Just a little bit of pressure. When this comes out of the animal, it's quite membraney and very soft, and you can actually puncture it if you're not careful enough. And it's going to have a yellowish substance, a bright yellowy substance, and it's going to smell almost kind of like a sweet plasticky smell. For us humans, for beavers, it all smells so different. This is what you're using as a lure if you're a trapper. Most trappers will save these and cure these, and then they'll scrape them out and mix them. That one trapper will just use that on an area, and this is normally before winter in the fall, above water trapping. So they put it on areas their thunder bears love and around where they're sliding off the banks or wherever they're traveling. Watch them put them around areas, and then they have thunder bears around. Trapping is very, very fun and unique because you're getting yourself thinking like the animal that you're after. And every trapper has their own kind of niche. Lots of trappers can do it all. Me, I like beavers and martens. That's what I like to do. They're also the easiest. So, well, in my opinion, you can't have Canada without beaver. And I'm
That
talking
makes
about
sense.
the animal. Get your mind out of the gutter there. Uh-oh. Yeah.
Okay.
But a beaver will keep you warm all winter. Yeah. Yeah.
Oh my gosh, I'm gonna need to put a X rated. I'm gonna have to mark this episode as explicit. Thank you so much, Zach. Inappropriate jokes aside, it was time to dive into traditional fishing. The work actually began before heading out on the lake with the careful untangling of the fishing nets, a meticulous task that requires patience and teamwork. We eventually got the net sorted, and Zach took a few of us out on a skiff boat to drop the net, spreading it out over a portion of the lake. The fish would swim into the net and get tangled. A lot easier than fishing with a traditional line and hook. Sure, the line and hook is more calming, but the mentality here is to feed a village and get ready for winter. But we'll need to wait till tomorrow to see what we caught. When Zach came back, he took a few more of us out on the lake specifically to show us a beaver's dam up close. We were fortunate enough to see a beaver and a few otters who showed up to greet us. Or maybe it was just curiosity. He went on to explain the inner workings of a dam, its purpose, its life cycle, and more. According to Zach, how bad the winter will be will depend on the distance between the underwater sticks and the beaver's home. The farther the sticks are, the longer the winter. We also learned that otters will sometimes live in the beaver's homes. However, if food becomes scarce, otters might eat the beaver's young. Jeez, what a way to repay your hosts. What makes the beaver such a significant animal in ecology?
So for the first part about it, it's mainly they're one of the background to this is growing up, going to school in Toronto, and then as soon as school was done, getting shipped back up north. Being taught the trapping and trapper's role, but also how to read the land based upon the prey animals. When I say prey animals as a trapper, you are going out there targeting specific species, and mainly being growing up doing beaver trapping and marten trapping, and then anything in between, whether it be a lynx or a wolf. So for beavers, specifically for me, they hold a place in my heart because they teach me so much, and they're nature's kind of engineers, the way that they're able to move water. And with modern technologies and imaging and fast forward, recording and then fast forwarding a full year of watching the land change. There's an interesting image on river systems with beavers and river systems without beavers that have been removed. Beavers can be classified as a nuisance because they're going to bog up moving water. But when they bog up that moving water with their dams, what they're creating is wetlands behind the dams. And then eventually the water will move over, and then the beavers will move downstream. They have satellite images now of river systems with beavers and river systems without beavers. And the river systems with beavers have more lush vegetations around the water versus river systems without. So they stimulate the land where they're building their homes and changing the landscapes.
When we returned to camp, it was time for dinner. We all got to help prepare the freshly caught elk meat, whose skin we'd be tanning the next day. Working together to cut the meat was more than just butchering. It was a lesson in gratitude and respect for the animal. Although my use of a knife can use some work and a little more patience. We gathered around the outdoor fire pit, sharing food and conversation. Kevin recounted a story about a young woman who disobeyed the elders, and as a consequence, she gave birth to a child that was half human, half fish. Every evening, she had to release her child into the lake, denying herself the full reward of motherhood. Kevin told us that these stories serve a purpose. In this case, it's a story of obedience, designed to remind the young ones of safety. Then there's this other story about this huge, scary monster that lives in the lake. It's designed to set limits as to how far out into the lake the kids are allowed to swim. However, another great story is that of Potato Island, and for that, we all jumped onto a pontoon boat and headed back out on the lake. By now it was cold, keeping in mind that it's June. I needed my hoodie, jacket, and a blanket. Look, I'm from big bad Toronto, but the minute it drops to -10, we start complaining. But I love hearing stories about Indigenous ancestors.
We have a bunch of different little islands, and then they have little stories to these little islands. So whenever you see that island, it doesn't look like any other island there. Kind of has a flat. There's no big trees that are growing on there. And then I remember when we were fishing and being out there, one of my uncles, they said, "Oh yeah, we're just gonna go by Potato Island," and I'm like, "Potato Island," and then that's how I knew it. And then I started asking certain people, my grandparents and an auntie, like, what's this Potato Island about, And then here it was actually really used at one time for potatoes. And if you see it, as you saw it, it's flat. It's kind of facing south, so it's just perfect, right? If there's a little bit of rain, of course, it's going to flow downhill that way, and it's perfect for potatoes, and gardening. So that brought forth gardening as well. Like we did a lot of gardening, and then but anyways, this story went even further because like what happens is I'll ask a question, and then afterwards one of our family members or an elder, they'll think about it, and then eventually they're going to remember of something that happened at this potato island, and then this is where the oral side of things is. We actually have things written down, but they're not written down the way like English written down. It'll be a landscape, or it'll be a point in the lake, or it'll be an island. And then they'll remember there's usually a song associated with that. And then this particular one was amazing because my uncle's not around anymore, the one that had shared the story with me. But he had mentioned that we have a species of horse that was just like directly south, and there's this place called Bronson Lake Forest, I guess in English, but the name for that lake is Musagampit. And then I always thought, okay, where the moose died, right? That's Bronson Lake, and that's where the horses were. They were kind of like magical to me because the way they shared them, we hunted down there all the time. We still go down there. I never saw these horses, so I'm like thinking, is this one of these, trick stories that that we're supposed to be afraid, or see these magical horses? Because you never see tracks. For one thing, I've never saw horse tracks, and then another thing was like even for them to be, because they're herding animals, but it was like I don't know, but I'll keep it as what it is. But it was until I saw the horses themselves, and then the wildness of those horses. Their manes are really long. Their hair mane, and then their tails are really long as well, and then they're kind of wide, kind of stocky horses. It was amazing to see them, and I was like, somebody left horses back here. What's going on, And then I'm like, oh yeah, those horses, the horse story. So I go around, I talk to my uncle again. I'm like, hey, guess what? I saw those horses that are around still. And he's like, oh, okay, here we go. So chapter 2 or whatever you want to call this, he goes into this story. And he said, one of our relatives, they went down there and they were going to gather around some of these horses for them to use here, because we needed them up here as well, to travel and to make it through our winters as well. And then we've always had this connection. But I guess the story was the one relative of ours. It was a woman, and then she was on a horse. They caught some horses, and they were bringing them back to our community. And then I guess one of the horses veered off and took this lady, and then she hung on. So now there's shape-shifting stories in our Cree. And then when they shapeshift, they kind of look like us, they're two-legged. They have two arms, but they're very attractive. They're very attractive to look at. And then, but they also bring a different perspective. They have different knowledge. They have different songs. They have different ways that they look at things. So I guess this horse turned himself to human form and then attracted one of our relatives. And eventually she stayed there actually with him, and because she was told, if you stay with me, I'll show you our medicines. I'll show you a different way to look at these lands. And then, so they became a couple. And then out of that marriage, the couples, she eventually gave birth to twins. And then these twins became known as the underwater horses. And then on that potato island, once in a while, people would see these underwater horses, atampiotemok, they called them. And they were like, they even went into the detail of like the beauty, how they looked was like kind of like, well, here, this is a beaded wallet, this color, kind of like that color. And then there was two of them, and then they were like metallic blue. But you had to be kind of almost pure, I guess, in a way, to see them. So you didn't want to walk an ugly way, or you didn't want to be a liar. You didn't want to be, you wanted to be pure of heart. That's the only way you would see them. So that was, there's so many layered teachings to this. But some would spook them, and then they get the gift of seeing them, but then they would dive into the water again. And then so those are half our relatives now, right? According to the story. So the conservation side of it is if we keep those alive and we respect them as relatives of ours, we're gonna watch what we do around the lake. We're gonna watch ourselves on the lake because if that's where they live part-time, we want to keep that place clean. So it's there's so many layered stories, but that's kind of like the short end of this potato island.
After our boat ride, we gathered around the fire, sipping on some of the most delicious tea. The night was cold, yet the company was warm. Kevin shared more stories before we checked into our accommodations for the night. I slept so well, I completely missed the Northern Lights. I'm completely up north in one of the best places to see them, in one of the best provinces to see them, yet I choose to sleep like a log. Maybe next time.
Want to explore this story further? Check out rudderlesstravel.com/podcasts, where we've got some pictures and links to help you experience this amazing adventure.
The next day began with an unforgettable experience, a once-in-a-lifetime memory, a sacred ceremony. Before breakfast, delicious pancakes cooking in the tent, Kevin invited us to participate in a traditional pipe ceremony with his family. As we entered the teepee, Kevin explained its significance and symbolism in a matriarchal society. He described the teepee as representing a woman with the 15 poles symbolizing her strength. The entrance, always facing south, represents where life is born. In Cree culture, women are the keepers of knowledge, giving life and love. Inside the teepee, a fire burned, with men on the left and women on the right. Kevin then began the ceremony. While we couldn't film or take pictures, the feeling of community, shared friendship and experiences and appreciation was palpable. After the ceremony, my colleague and friend asked if there was a person who was transitioning or perhaps struggling with their sexual identity, where would they sit? Well, as complicated as society these days would have you believe, the answer is actually quite simple: wherever they feel comfortable. While here, I experienced so many moments like this where life just gets uncomplicated, simplified. You know what I mean? We returned to the lake to collect the fish from our nets. A few of us piled into Zach's skiff boat, while the rest of us hopped on the pontoon boat to get a closer look. We watched as they pulled fish after fish from the net. We caught a mix of whitefish, suckerfish, and pickerel, walleye. Once we got back to camp, we learned how to clean the fish, scaling, gutting, and filleting.
This took a long time for us to get like jumbo fished, that little hump. Yes. So they're starting to get big again.
I'm ashamed to admit I've never done any of these things before, but I'm absolutely grateful for the experience. And to be honest, my knife skills haven't improved since cutting the elk the day before, but it was okay. We also discovered that even the scales of the fish have a purpose for the Cree. They're used to make jewelry and decorate hides along with beads, and the heads, well, those will be used in stews. You were showing us some of how you use like various parts of the fish. So tell us about the different parts of the fish, and what do you use so that nothing goes to waste?
Okay. Yeah. So we have 7 different species of fish in our lake. We have a very healthy water. So we're very blessed where we live. Yeah, Ministikwan Lake. Yeah. So I grew up on that lake and we eat fresh fish right out of the lake. Pull the net or go fishing. So usually, well, the fillets, of course, we eat the fish, right? Fry up the fish, cook that, and you have a very healthy meal, one of the healthiest meals. And then the skins, we tan the skins. I do tea tanning. There are different methods of tanning, but what I learned was tea tanning. So I take the skins and I turn them into a leather. And then the scales, we descale the fish and we dye the scales.
That's Darla Campbell. She teaches hide tanning at Kâniyâsihk.
Or you can use them white the way they are, and make fish scale art. You can use them in jewelry, beadwork, like different things like that. And then the spine as well. That was a new thing that I had learned from my mom. So we parboil the spines, clean them, and then you can use them for beadwork. Yeah. So, and it's just that no waste philosophy, right? And I'd like to tie it in with food sovereignty, trying to utilize every part of that animal to honor that animal and to continue to learn different ways to utilize other parts, because throughout like Canada, people will use different parts of the fish for different things. So it's always nice to go to different communities and then you learn in turn other ways, like, wow, I didn't know you could use it like that. And then like another way, and then it's just this whole thing of just food sovereignty and being in control of our foods and our health, right? So we do that with the fish skins and the spines and the scales. So that was a huge thing that for myself, yeah, to try to utilize every part of the animal. Yeah.
Zach's daughter was cutting the fish into smaller pieces and passing them to Kevin, who was adding them to the fryer. While the fresh fish fried, we moved on to the meticulous process of hide tanning. Darla guided us through the ancient art form. But what is hide tanning?
So I have 3 sons. I have 3 boys, and I facilitate at kâniyâsihk culture camps alongside my brother, like Dr. Kevin Lewis. He started that with my mom, alongside my mom, and it was the need for language and culture. There was such a huge disconnect. So it was like we need this as a part of our identity and who we are. We're losing who we are, and we're losing our kids, we're losing our youth, our elders, our everybody. It's like COVID, we lost so many elders. And then so that was a huge thing for me, was like, okay, we need to reconnect. And it was like hide tanning was my way to reconnect. Yeah. So then I picked up hide tanning and I've been doing traditional brain tanning for 6 years now, I want to say. Yeah. So it was like, and like during COVID, it was like, I just went like full force. Like, here it is. Like, we were in our bubble at the lake and we just continued to do what we do, continued living our lives. And it was like we had that luxury of we weren't stuck inside. It was like we had that freedom to be outside on the lake, on the land, and just healing and being together as a family, right? So it was perfect for us. It was good for us to just disconnect. And I haven't seen Kevin in such a long time, like for that long. He said, I haven't left the house in a month. Like, and that was and it was such a funny thing. But yeah, like it was just me wanting to reconnect, and that was like through hide tanning. So that's what I do. I do hide tanning, and I learned that from my kugam, and I did it with, well, my grandmother. So kugam, my mom Nigawi, and then my dad Nutawi. So working alongside them, and I have that luxury that I still have my gugum and I still work alongside my mom and dad. And with Kevin, and now my sister is coming back home, and I see that in her. She lived in Saskatoon for years. Ever since she graduated, she left and she was gone and she was in the city. And then I had to come back. I needed to come back. And it was like, this was my time to heal and come back. And now she's on her healing journey. And I'm so proud of her. Like, I love her so much. And she's going to be tanning her own hide now, like this fall. Yeah.
Yeah, and we'll dive into all the steps that go into hide tanning because you mentioned brain, and I know the listeners are like, did she just say brain? And yes, she did.
So we finished scraping it. I brained it. We pre-smoked it, and I put it in water, and I let it hang to dry.
Is it meat or brain? Yeah. Do you guys mean?
You use the brain from the animal to tan its own hide.
Oh.
Yeah. So every brain is enough to tan its own hide from every animal.
Wow.
Yeah.
What do you do? Do you rub it on?
Yeah. So we make a solution. So it's fat, sunlight soap, and the brain.
That's traditional way.
That's traditional. Yeah, that's the secret.
The brain helps the process. Like what
You're reintroducing the fats. So at this stage, they would be rawhide. Those would be your drums, your rattles, things like that, your part fletch, right? But then now you're putting the brain solution on it, reintroducing the fat, and now it's leather. This is amazing. Yeah. And the people get really like asking like really scientific questions, and I'm like, I know it just works. See, it works.
Someone else should figure out.
Yeah. Then Kevin always talks about that, like we have our own sciences, our own maths, and that kind of right in that sense too. But so I'll even render fat off of the animal, and I'll use it on the hides too. Yeah. You can put marrow. Some people will use the egg yolks. There's all sorts of different things, but we do traditional brain tanning.
Nice. And sunlight.
And sunlight. Here's our secret. Now you guys know.
So tell us a bit about each step when it comes to tanning. I know there's like 12, I think.
13.
There you go.
13 steps. Yeah. You were one step off. So there's 13 steps to hide tanning. Some people will tell you otherwise, but this is just how I like to share it and teach it. I'm not always following every step accordingly. Sometimes I'm going to like move down the line and then come back up and then, but so hide tanning, traditional brain tanning, we have the skin, we skin the animal, and then we take the brain from the animal to tan its own hide. So that essentially is traditional brain tanning. So we're reintroducing that fat from the brain and fat from the animal, as well as what we could use or any kind of rendered fats. And we reintroduce those fats to make a leather, traditionally tanned leather. And I know there's a lot of science behind it. I just haven't dug that deep into that science. I just know that it works. Our ancestors, like my kugums, my aunties, science. Yeah. They've been doing that for decades, and they've passed down that knowledge. And, and really, there's no, like I'm going to say, like, there's no right way to tan a hide, or would I say there's not a wrong way, or like I'm not going to say that this is how you have to do it. The way I do it is how you should do it. No, because you go across like Turtle Island and you go to the different regions, they all tan hides differently. And just seeing that and learning alongside other hide tanners and bouncing ideas off of each other, it's amazing. Like, and it's like, so this is what my Gugum taught me, and this is what I picked up, and this is how, and it's like, it's such a cool community, like hide tanning community, so much fun. And it's like, my friends say like, oh, I just love geeking out over all of this. Like, we're so excited to just share and talk about it, like it's amazing. Like, I absolutely love hide tanning. So then the 13 steps. So I'll read the steps to you. So the first step would be skinning the hide, soaking the hide, stretching the hide, fleshing, then dry scraping and thinning the hide, and then the first smoke. And then, did I say braining hide? So scraping and thinning the hide, braining the hide, and then the pre-smoke. And then soaking the hide in water, softening and wringing out the hide, and then drying the hide, and then softening and fluffing until it's broke and soft. And then the final smoke, where we use rotted spruce, punky wood to get the final color and that smell onto the hide. Yeah.
Just so the viewers and the listeners know. So if you're watching, then you could see clips because I have footage of what we're doing.
Yeah.
But if you're listening, like some of those steps are like they're intense. So like the first step, like when you're actually separating the fur from the skin, you were using a tool called your tools had cool names too. There was one called was there one called like
Flesher.
a deep yeah, the flesher.
The flesher. So your hide tanning tools would be a flesher, and then the softener, your scrapers. So a round scraper and a flat scraper. Yeah. So those are your tools. Yeah. So flesher, that would be the first. Yeah. When we have it strung up and we flesh all of it. Yeah. That's what we call it,
Yeah.
fleshing.
Now I love it. I'm using the flesher. No,
Yeah.
but yeah, there was like, but that was the process of removing the fur from the hide. So that was so hard.
That was
All
the
like
dry
some
scraping.
the dry
Yeah, the
scraping,
dry
yeah.
scraping. Yes, with the scrapers.
Oh,
Yeah. So
with the scrapers, yeah.
that's a
Sorry,
long
yeah, that's right.
process.
Yeah,
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
yes.
And that's
And I
what,
remember,
yeah,
yeah,
that's what your group got to do. And like some of them were just like, yes, yes, I needed this, right? Kind of
yeah.
got
My friend,
like a real
my friend
therapy
Catherine.
session.
It was she completely like dug into that because she was feeling
Yeah.
so good from that. Like it was such a relief for her. But that's a lot of manual work. So like I mean, how long does it take for you to do like the entire process?
So I like to tell people at least 2 weeks if you were to be just going steady on this hide. Deer,
On one
maybe
hide. On
7
one.
days on one hide, just one
Right.
hide.
Okay.
Yeah, it takes a lot of time and energy into each hide. Yeah, so it's a very slow art, a very slow process, but it's so rewarding, And like traditional brain tanned hides are very hard to come by because of the amount of work that goes into it. And a lot of people have the knowledge, but there's a difference between having the knowledge and practicing that knowledge, right? Using that knowledge. And I know it is exhausting, but like hide tanning is a communal event. You need all hands on, and it's the stories and the talking and the visiting and working together on these hides for like this common goal that we're gonna make this hide, and it's so much fun. It's like it's awesome. Yeah. And yeah.
Okay, so I think we talked about this, but what does the process teach us about patience, resourcefulness, and respect for the animal?
So like going back to that food sovereignty, it's just about honoring that animal, utilizing every part of it. And I go back to that a lot because like that's the reason why, like that's my train of thought on is it is so we rely on that moose every fall to get us through the winter. The cost of food is like skyrocketed, and then a lot of the times you don't really know where your food is coming from, your meats, different things like that. But then we know where our animals are coming from and they're healthy, and it's like, and that's where we take back that food sovereignty that we're in charge and we take care of, we can sustain ourselves through that, like we can get our own elk, we can get our own moose, we feed our kids this fresh meat that is so high in protein, so healthy, not filled with antibiotics or, all of this different things like that they pump into these animals to just like get them out there as fast as we can. And then you're in turn seeing like how that's affecting children's bodies, and like all these hormones and additives and things like that. So it's nice to just be able to take control over what we want to eat and to make those decisions to be like, we're lucky enough that we have those options. I know a lot of people don't, but we are so thankful and showing how thankful we are. We're in turn utilizing every part of that animal, every part of that moose, every part of that fish just to honor it and so that nothing goes to waste, and that's such a huge thing because I find like society can be very wasteful. Everything it has to be like, let's just get this out, let's get that out, let's just get as fast as we can, production, get it all, and it's like, but for hide tanning, it's such a slow art. It makes you slow down and think and be thankful.
How has this tradition been passed down through the generations, and why is it so important to continue teaching it today?
So growing up, my dad was a hunter. So I had to skin. I knew how to skin, quarter a moose. I knew how to do all of it, and I didn't like any of it. It's like, why do I have to do this? It's like, cause you have to. And it was kind of one of those things where, like my Google and my mom would be like, you have to learn how to do this. You need to know how to do this. And like, dad's going to show you how to skin this moose. And then so from then on, it was always like, hey, Darla, come on, we got to go skin. We got to go quarter. We got to debone this meat. We got to package this meat. We got to dry this meat. So I would make dry meat, traditional dry meat with my Gugum. And it was always that like, yeah, come on, show up, And then a part of me, it was like at the time when I was younger, it was like, I would do it. So maybe half of the time I like didn't want to do it, but they didn't really give me a choice, which I'm thankful for, They would be like, just go.
Always
You have
are
to
in the long
help.
run.
Yeah, right. When you're a kid, it's like you want to be outside playing. You don't want to be doing any of this stuff, right? Like, why do I need to
Yeah.
learn this? What's the importance of it? You don't see the importance of it. And then so as we're getting older, then I'm seeing like, hey, so we lost another elder. We lost another elder. And with them, all that knowledge goes. It's like, and when they go, it's like it's gone, which is so heartbreaking now because it's like my grandparents on my paternal side, my dad, they passed when I was a baby, so I didn't have that. I didn't have them growing up. I didn't know who they were. I didn't know where I came from on that side of the family, right? And I know she carried a lot of knowledge. Held a lot of knowledge in medicines and things like that. And it just makes me think like, oh, if I had her still today. And then I'm so thankful that I still have my Gugum with me and she had this high tanning knowledge. And I would flesh with them, I would scrape with them, I'd work alongside them as a kid. I'm like, so if Gugum goes, it goes with her. So who's going to carry that? Somebody has to carry that. So I took that upon myself to carry it for my kids, for my grandkids, my great grandkids, right? Because I want them to be able to be moose hunting one day to provide for their families. And yeah, like it's such a huge thing. To me, that's such a huge thing, like this moose to honor it and ethical hunting. We don't shoot cows, we only shoot moose. And that in turn keeps that we're going to continue to have moose for the next generation, the next generation. So, and that's a huge thing that I like to share too. It's like, I'm not just going and like, yeah, I need hides, go shoot me a moose. It's not like it's,
Yeah.
and some people and some people maybe that's what they think that happens, but culturally, no, it's like we're relearning and we're in turn teaching other people like, so this is the importance of it and this is why we do it, right? So it's to honor that animal, to thank it for giving its life to us, its life force. And then now we in turn eat that moose and we continue hide tanning, we get to wear it, create clothing, art, different things with that hide. And it's just, yeah, utilizing every part. It's so important. And then that's where I had to that's where I picked it up. It's like, it's so important to share that knowledge. And I teach my kids hide tanning as well. And why do I have to learn this? I don't want to do this, And I'm like, you're going to thank me one day. You have to learn it. I'm like, you have to. It's like, I can't explain all of it to you, but right now one day you're going to see the importance of it. I said, just like learning the songs and the dance and the cultural and traditions, of powwows, sweats, our lodges, our ceremonies, all of it. One day you're going to see the importance of it. And thankfully, like as Indigenous people, we are seeing the importance of it. And we see how learning where you're from and your identity, how important that is, to be proud of who we are, where we come from, because we're beautiful people and we have every right to share our story alongside everybody else in the world, So, and and we're a very happy, like, laughing people. We like to tell stories. We like to bug each other. We like to, visit. We like to just like get together and like talk over food, over high tanning, over fishing, over anything. And we like to share with one another, provide for other families, provide for other people who normally wouldn't be able to get at a moose or fresh fish. So that's what it is.
Talking about the connection between high tanning and food sovereignty is, of course, connected to fishing, hunting, and trapping. The timing couldn't be more perfect as we were all sitting around the campfire enjoying the delicious fish we caught this morning. Just like farm to table, we got lake to table over here. And I was never really a fan of fish except for salmon, tuna, fish and chips, and flying fish. Flying fish being that I'm Canadian born from Bayesian parents. We're talking about the island of Barbados. It's something I grew up on. All that to say, it wasn't until I started eating fish from coastal cities and towns that I started realizing that fresh fish doesn't taste fishy. The fish that came out of that lake was outstandingly fresh, delicious, as was the fresh elk wrapped in the pita we had yesterday in the elk fajitas, as Zach likes to call them. Walk us through what it's like to actually go hunting. Like, what's the process like? From sightings, I guess, or from the beginning, like, where are you going? How do you even know where to go? Into like the actual hunt itself. Like, is there like adrenaline when when you get excited when you see and you're about to go, and then after you get your shot off, and then going to find the animals. Like, what are those phases like? Those steps?
So it in this area, you can either do it of one of two ways. One, when you're driving around, because if you want to go to the grocery store, it's an hour drive. It's an hour drive to go get a liter of milk, right? And that's relatively a short ways to when you think about it. You got Meadow Lake an hour away, or you have Cold Lake an hour away. So let's say it's Friday night and we're going to go to Cold Lake, whether to do a grocery shop, see a movie, or go to Canadian Tire and get some bullets. On our way, what are we noticing? Well, we're noticing, okay, hey, there's a moose hanging around in that slough here. Oh, there's a beaver dam on over that overpass on that bridge a little closer down the bank. So it's just observation while traveling. Back home growing up, if we're when I wasn't in school and we're out on the land, we always have a rifle nearby, because if we're working outside, you're always going to be seeing something, and it's an opportunistic kind of a hunt outside of hunting season. Now, as a subsistence lifestyle, you always need to be prepared. It's not so much a survival situation, but it's more so much as knowing what tools to have, when to have them, and how to utilize them. And that's what we teach here with the land-based program at the Cree school. So that's one way. You're spotting an animal consistently in and around a certain area. Now, the reason why you're going to be hunting during the mating season or the rut is you're mimicking certain sounds and you're mimicking certain smells to stimulate a bull to come in on you for moose, for let's say. And for here, we don't shoot cows and we don't shoot calves, because a cow is going to be your natural bait for a bull come mating season. That calf is going to grow up to be either a cow moose or a bull moose, a male or a female moose. So we here specifically at Kâniyâsihk, myself, Darla's husband TK, Kevin, William Cardinal, who you met, we're all hunting bull moose, whether it's a little spike bull, you know, or a big dominant bull. And again, this is now how we as ethical harvesters monitor our population of prey animals, because we are humans. We are the alpha predators. Doesn't matter what part of the world you go to, humans are the killers. We are the killers. Now, if we go into an area, and Kevin probably used this term with you during his talk, a moose moratorium, where you are now so stressed that you are shooting everything. And the only thing that keeps bull moose around an area are cow moose, because bull moose are like men. We want to rut, and we want to hang around chicks. Really, when you think about it like that, it's a simple kind of instinctual level. So how does hunting go about at this time of year when you don't spot it on your weekly grocery store run into town? That would be by every other day. Well, William and I were hitting it pretty hard all September, going out there, finding animals, where they're at, where they're living, what they're doing. Due to family knowledge that's been shared with me, I know moose, the term for a moose is called swamp donkey. That's just a derogatory term. A donkey, a swamp donkey, mainly being because they stick around swampy, low, watery areas. Most of the food sources that they're eating are going to be located in those areas. So at this point, we've been going out and we've been doing selective calling in areas where we think a moose would be based upon the geographic location. We're looking at shady areas for hot days. We're looking at areas with slopes, and we're looking at areas with water off the beaten path. And we know, based upon our family teachings, that moose like to eat willow leaves, moose like to eat aspen leaves, moose like to eat certain things. So we find these trees, we find their food source, and more often than not, there will be a moose within the area. Now, then we're going to start doing calling at certain times of the day. My favorite is early morning. Half an hour before sun up, I start calling and sounding like a moose. So whether it's going to be bull location grunts, whether it's going to be cow mewing, whether it's going to be calf whining, different kinds of sounds to see what's in the area. And especially when we're in the bush, whether it's walking or bushwhacking or on a side-by-side or four-wheeler, or even on the lake, moving around boats and checking out different parts of the banks of the lake. We're also going to be looking for smells. We play a game here at the lake called Show and Tell, Guess Smell. One of those show and tell, guess the smell items that I bring out is moose pee. And I bring out moose pee normally it's from bull moose that are in the rut, and I call it sweet tea. And I have a big jug of it right now. And that's something that the show and tell guess the smell. That's something that as young kids, our children and our students need to know this smell. Because if they come across that smell in the bush, 9 times out of 10, there's going to be a bull moose in that vicinity. We're exposing our students and our children to these smells, letting them know, giving them more tools for their toolbox to be successful out on the hunt.
Zach said that they also head out scanning for fresh moose signs, chewed leaves, twigs, and branches. He then teaches the students how to tell the difference between old chewed leaves and twigs and freshly chewed leaves and branches, or distinguishing the difference between bull tracks and cow tracks. They might sprinkle fresh moose urine, use birch bark hulls, or even use a moose scraper or rattler made out of a moose scapula, the shoulder blade, to scrape or rake trees, recreating the noises of a bull or a calling cow. The goal here is to trigger the instincts of the bull, drawing him into the area to investigate or assert dominance. Bulls often respond by grunting, raking trees, and creating wallows, rut pits, where they splash mud and spread their scent. Zach also mentioned that understanding moose behavior and the rut cycle is critical. According to Zach, tracking is very hands-on. This combination of smell, touch, sight, and sounds makes the learning experience unforgettable.
moose in September is going to be eating lots because they're just going to be. And if you call 2 bull moose in on you, and your cow call is that good, you're going to have those 2 bull moose fighting in front of you. You're going to have 2, 900 to 1,200 pound animals fighting for the privilege to mate with you as the hunter. And it happens.
So what are you doing in that situation? Are you just waiting for them to just take each other out, and then who loses is...
Like, if you're 2 hunters, that's 2 families, that's 2 moose, that's
okay,
that's
fair.
2 moose.
Okay, so they're both there. They're okay. I see what
You're
you're
both
saying.
there.
Yeah.
So say we get a moose coming in on us later on this afternoon, early evening, and then we shoot. And yeah, there is an adrenaline dump. And if like I'll steal this line from William Cardinal, who's he's sober now for like 5 years, and he goes, "This is the best drug on the planet. Hunting is the best drug on the planet." And there is a feeling, and when you bring up your rifle, or if you're bow hunting or crossbow hunting or whatever have you, and you fire, and you nail where you're wanting to shoot that moose, and then you see him struggle and drop, and it's a good kill shot, and the moose is down without unnecessary suffering. On your way to the kill site, my heart is pounding, not with fear, but with adrenaline, going, heck yeah, and getting up to that moose, and then bleeding him right then and there, cutting off that bell, laying down your tobacco or whatever you are taught what to do and how to do it, and then hanging that bell and giving thanks, and then you're getting ready to gut and skin and haul out of there. There's a few things in life that can compare to that, but it is a feeling of pure euphoria, in my opinion. But as someone who would be priding themselves on their ability to go out and harvest an animal, there's no greater feeling than coming home and you're tired because you just did some serious amount of work, and you go to sleep fulfilled. That's for sure. There's nothing else like it.
Just like that, what felt like a week of learning and experiences was already over.
So like you guys were doing, and like you guys do with your lives and your stories, I read your biographies, I read your, all the things that we all do. That's what, we need to continue that life and share those little ones that are here. Be models, role model for them, that they could have careers like all of you,
We all gathered in the teepee one last time, although it's not really the last time. It's more like till next time. As Kevin mentioned, that in the Cree language, there isn't really a word for goodbye. The closest is until we meet again, which, in my opinion, sounds perfect. In Canada, the chances of you running into someone who doesn't talk about the weather is pretty low. Here, you're taught how to survive off the land, especially in the winter, so much so that if you are asked, "How many winters are you?" you'd simply reply with your age.
Everyone has fingers?
Socks are so
Kâniyâsihk culture camps was more than just a trip. It was a deep lesson in connection, resilience, and respect. So if your travels ever bring you to Saskatchewan, I encourage you to seek out Kâniyâsihk culture camps. Come with an open heart, ready to learn, connect, and be changed. Until we meet again, I'll see you in the next episode.